Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today, if you're watching this the day it came out, is November 15th, 2014, and it's the birthday of the North American release of the PlayStation 4. And I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk about what it's been like for the last year, my experiences with it, etc. And I will be doing the same thing on the Wii U and with the Xbox One. I'm just going in calendar order, so the next one up would be the Wii U, which is November 18th, and then the Xbox One, which is November 22nd. So again, just calendar order. Now the PS4, if you've been following gaming news, is really kicking ass in this generation as far as sales go. People are buying the PS4 hand over fist. They really want it, and it's doing very well in of itself, and that's good for it. But I'm not so sure, in my opinion, really, that it's actually because the console's like fucking awesome. I think it's just because it fucked up the least. Does that make sense? All right, let me elaborate here. The PS4 did not introduce itself with a bunch of fascist DRM bullshit. It did not tell us, it did not come out and cost $100 more than its competitor. It's more powerful than its competitors, which is good. It did not try to shoehorn in this retarded camera thing that nobody really wanted and cost more money to have it. You know, it didn't come out and advertise only at like Pottery Barn and try to appeal to our grandmothers and to our sisters and shit like the Wii U did. See what I'm saying? The PS4 just came out and said, like, I'm a game console, I'm moderately priced, I have the better looking versions of games, and how you doing? Like, that's pretty much how the PS4 has been operating. It's just been kind of going on a linear course. It's been very risk-free, and that kind of leads into the problem, is that Sony is in fucking deep shit financially, and they can't afford to do things where they go off and make crazy risks. The thing is, Sony is a huge multinational conglomerate. You know, they make game consoles, obviously, but they make televisions, they make cell phones, they make movies, they make music formats, they make a fuck ton of shit. And all their divisions, basically except for the PlayStation division, are fucking up hardcore. They are losing shit tons of cash. I'm sure you've tuned into the news every once in a while and heard like, oh, McDonald's reports like, you know, $3 billion profit this year. The Sony Corporation has reported to us, to the public, through things like Forbes and to CNN Money and all sorts of other publications, they are anticipating a full $2.1 billion loss this year. Wrap your mind around that. In the year in which the PlayStation 4 kicked ass and sold like 10 million units, they made no money. Literally $0 was earned by the Sony Corporation. They lost $2.1 billion. That's insane. Now that's why I think Sony approached the PS4 the way they did, which was very interesting. This is Sony's first console ever, and probably their last one ever, to come out and actually be able, in of itself, to yield a profit. So what I mean by that is, Sony's always had this method of, we give away the shaver to sell the blades. The best example, actually, is the launch version of the PS3. Remember that thing? It was a beast. That thing cost $600 when it came out. And everyone was like, it's overpriced, it's expensive, I hate it, fuck you! They didn't want it. Because it was expensive. $600 is a lot of fucking money, I get it. But Sony, it actually cost them $900 per unit to make those. They were willing to give you $300 off to take it. Now that's obviously a bad business model for hardware, but the way they made up for it is like, hey, we'll just have like a shit ton of games, and people will buy those. If they buy the console, they'll buy the games. And they'll be like, wow, I'm getting a great deal for only $600 or whatever. PS1, PS2 was more like $200, $300. They were like, oh, I'm getting a great deal. They'll get the console in the home, then they'll buy all the games and stuff, and we'll make money that way. That was how they always approached it. With PS4, because of how much financial deep shit they're in, they could not do that again. So the PS4, they can actually build one of these things. I think it's for $381 per unit. to get it in, to fully build it, to put it in the box, and to get it on a store shelf. That whole process cost them $381 per console. So they're actually making $19 per unit. Not a lot of money, but when you consider the fact that they've always lost shit tons of money on each unit sold, that's a pretty big difference in philosophy. So then, of course, they continue with the other part of the model, which is then we'll sell the games, we'll make money on that. So that is good. But see, that division is not enough in of itself to hold up the rest. It's like, imagine one guy, even if he's like a strong man, trying to pick up a fucking elephant all by himself. Impossible. Yeah, he's making an effort, he's trying, he's strong, but he's not going to be able to lift up a fucking fat-ass elephant. It's not going to happen. That's basically what the PS4, the PS4 is the guy, and Sony is the fucking elephant. It's trying, but goddamn it, oh my god, this is unrealistic. That's basically, unfortunately, the situation they're in. And that will maintain with those kinds of staggering losses. So Sony's kind of figuring out what they're going to do. They're kind of restructuring. They've been selling off assets here and there. Like the Vio division, they got rid of that. They sold off Square Enix assets. They sold off buildings in New York. They did all sorts of shit. It looks like they're going to start, they might get rid of their cell phone division. They might get rid of their television division. We don't know yet. We don't know exactly what they're going to do, but it's clear they're doing restructuring to try and just survive. Because unlike their competition, if the PS4 failed, they'd be done. It's over. That's the end of the Sony corporation. Microsoft couldn't care less. I mean, I'm sure they don't want the Xbox One to fail, but if it did, they'd be like, that sucks, but we're fucking Microsoft, we're fine. Nintendo even could do fine, would survive that for now. But yeah, Sony could not. So it's for that reason that I wouldn't say worry about the PS4's future. It'll be fine. For the next few years, Sony's going to put every single fucking effort they can into the PS4 because it's the only thing that's doing well. I don't think, though, that there's going to be a PS5. A lot of people get mad when I say that, but it's true. I don't think that there will be. There could be, but I don't think there's going to be another wave of consoles at all. If there are, I think Nintendo might actually do one, because they're always they're a generation behind right now anyway, and they are a very different type of company. I could see them doing another console, a conventional one. But Microsoft, I could easily see them just saying, fuck it, we're done with the whole Xbox thing, let's give this up. It was fun for a while, let's move on. But Sony, they rely on the PlayStation for anything, and I think it's possible if we get anything called a PS5, assuming Sony is even still a company in a few years, which they won't be if those kinds of losses keep happening. But if they do make some sort of PS5, I see it being like a little box, like the way the PS TV is, that thing that just came out. If they could do something like that, and it's basically just a streaming service box where it doesn't have any real local hardware, it's more or less a receiver with controller ports. Not even controller ports, like fucking Bluetooth ports for wireless controller communication. And it just connects to a server and you just do PlayStation Now shit. And I know a lot of people say like, oh, but internet connections, they're not ready yet, blah, which could very well be true. We don't know what the bandwidth allocations for games like that would be. But what we do know is PlayStation Now is on the PS3, it's on the PS4, and it is on the PS TV, and seems to work. It's expensive as all fuck, but it does work. So I could see that seriously being their future if they make another console. It wouldn't be a real console, it'd just be the PS5, and it's a fucking streaming box. Or, worst case scenario, they don't do that, they go under and they sell off their assets, one of which being the PlayStation name, basically. Sell it to someone like Amazon or something, and Amazon just turns it into like a Steam competitor or something, I could see that happening. I could also see Sony doing that, but I kind of doubt they would because they've always fundamentally been a technology company, and I think they would want to release something physical. But maybe somebody there would be like, look, releasing physical things is what's killing us, who knows. I know that's not totally directed at the PS4, but what I'm telling you is, as much deep shit as Sony is in currently, the PS4 in of itself will be okay. I got all the game consoles right away, and I had to make the decision, as I do every generation, which one will maybe be my favorite, which one will be the one that I use as my console of choice, and most commonly they're the same thing. But they are the same console, but not always. Like the 6th gen, my favorite console, the Dreamcast. Console of choice, Xbox. And the difference there is that the Dreamcast, I love that console. I love it. It's where I had the best gaming experiences of that generation. But since it wasn't around for very long, My console of choice became the Xbox because it had all the best multiplats. But when you think of the original Xbox, you don't really think of exclusives, right? So the PS4 versus Xbox One versus Wii U is kind of a similar deal. The Wii U, my favorite console in this generation. PS4, believe it or not, is now my console of choice in this generation. And I'm sure a lot of you who've been following me for years just went, what? Because I've never picked a Sony console ever as either my favorite or my console of choice. It has never happened. So why would that be the case? Well, some sad reality. We are becoming more and more aware, and we became more and more aware over the course of the year, that whenever a multiplat was coming out, it was always performing better on the PS4 as opposed to the Xbox One. And you never get a multiplat on the Wii U. That's not first of all, they almost never get released at all. And if they do, why would you bother? You know, they're always going to be very watered down, there's going to be something wrong with them, etc. And you just go, well, I'm not picking that, so it's between the other two. And then what we've learned is you're getting higher resolution out of the PS4. You're getting extra content on the PS4. And you go, yeah, I think I might pick that. That's offering me more for my money. Because it's not like Microsoft's giving you a $10 discount on each copy of the game for taking an inferior version. Granted, the difference is small. I get that. But, and I know a lot of people are like, you're a graphics whore, you're a video whore, blah. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just saying that if the game looks better and performs better, why would I go to the alternative? What's the logic in that? And I know people could bring up PCs and all that, but I've never been a PC gamer. I'm never going to be a PC gamer. It's never going to happen. So when it comes to the console specifically, I've decided I'm with the PS4, at least for now. So the first reason, as I already explained, is because of basically game performance and resolution and so on. Even if, again, it isn't the biggest difference ever. The second one, which was really surprising to me, was the controller. If you don't know, I'm sure you do if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, but I've never liked the PlayStation controller. The PS1, PS2, PS3 controller. I thought it sucked. I thought that was a really bad controller. People get pissed off when I say that. I don't know why. I'm not saying that you have to hate it. I'm just saying you have to understand that the core of that controller is a fucking Super Nintendo controller. Do you realize that? If you know your gaming history, you'll know that at one point Sony and Nintendo had a deal together. They got all sorts of botched and fucked up, but it doesn't matter. But the result was Sony was using the Super Nintendo controller at one point. And then when they made the PlayStation, all they really did was glue on a fucking couple of grips to it and said, okay, there's the PlayStation controller. And then eventually they glued on the fucking like joysticks. And when you hold it, you can tell it's fucking cumbersome and awkward to hold. It's I'm not saying it's not well built. It's a reliable controller. It's just uncomfortable, at least in my opinion. So when it came to the PS4, I fully expected them to follow suit because they never changed the damn controller, and I thought it would suck. And then I held it and I thought, oh my god, this is fucking great. I never expected that. This is a great controller. It really is very, very good. And again, I didn't expect that shit at all. So I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, the console now has more content in games. It looks better. The games are better looking to me. They perform better. And the controller is better when I'm playing them as opposed to the Xbox One. And don't get me wrong, I like the Xbox One controller just fine. But much to my surprise, I just think this is a better controller. So, that wasn't enough. I mean, I've been aware of those things for a while. And there are some serious negatives to the PS4, which I'll get into in a bit. But there was finally something, the straw that broke the camel's back. In of itself, much like the straw, not a big deal. But at one point, just it is enough extra weight to just make it come down. And that additional thing was the fact that I am capable of ripping PS4 games. Now, I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but here's the thing. I buy a lot of games used. There's no way I could afford this many games brand new. So over time, when you're buying games, you have to buy used games as well. And as a collector, you know, like for example, I'm trying to get a full US Sega Saturn set. I'm not going to Sega and being like, I need brand new copies of everything, let me give you the immediate money. That's impossible. So you have no choice but to buy used games. So when you do that, you run the risk inherently that the game could be defective. So a lot of people, what they'll do, including myself at one point, you pop in the console, did it work? Oh good, then the thing's fine. It's not enough. You want to rip it to a PC and make sure there's no data sectors that are damaged. And I'm capable of doing this with just about every game console, every CD game console. There's only 2 exceptions, the Wii U and the Xbox One. And I know that sounds like it doesn't really matter, but it kind of does, because I'm thinking about it long term. I'm thinking, if I'm buying games for this thing in like 10 years, if I'm going into a store and being like, ooh, look, they have a bunch of PS4 games, let me get some used ones and whatever. I want to know that when I come back, I can verify that they function completely. Which is how it is. You know, if you, with the PS4, when you actually put it into the console, sure it'll start up, and sure it'll start ripping the game, but it'll also start playing the game. And since I have no damaged games, I don't know exactly how this would work, but I assume it would fail while you're playing it. And that's not, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know if it failed until you're too far into it. And, you know, it's a return policy. You got a couple of days to be sure. So it's just the most efficient method. And that ultimately was the small thing that tipped the favor. So, yeah, that's just how it is. However, I do want to talk about some criticisms I have. Some things that this console is doing very wrong, or at least could fix, and some of which I've been harping on since last year. There's 3 points in particular. And the third one is so bad, it could actually convince me to go right back over to the Xbox brand. Because again, other than the Dreamcast, Xbox all the way, 6th gen. 7th gen, Xbox all the way. This gen, not there, because of all the problems the Xbox One has, which I'll talk about in its video. But there is one problem with the PS4 that's so overwhelming, it could actually change my mind. But let's talk about the littler ones. The first one is mostly irrelevant, but it's just something I noticed. The Xbox One is capable of playing music CDs, as is almost every game console, every CD-based game console ever, except every console Nintendo ever did. But the PS4 is not. Now I know. Music CDs have almost no relevance in the modern world, I know. But it's just weird because at first I thought it was the hardware. I thought it simply didn't have the laser that was capable of reading it. It does, actually. All that's stopping it is just a firmware update with software that would allow it to do it. Is that a deal breaker? Fuck no. It's just an observable negative. But in all honesty, it's not like I can say I would even never use it. I just think it's one of those things where you would feel there's more bang for your buck if you know that console is also capable of doing this. You know what I'm saying? So it's a negative, but by no means one that I would say is a decider. The next one is, well, along those lines, this isn't really a separate point, but they did actually just enable Mp3 support, which is cool and more useful than music CDs, but odd because, and I mean when I say just, I mean like a couple of weeks ago, they just put it in. However, I've noticed it doesn't really seem to work. You know, what happens is if you have a USB device with some music on it, the dashboard thing will pop up and say like, hey, you have a USB device with music on it, you want to play it, and you'll open it up and it'll show you your music. And I would try to open and activate files and it would just say unsupported format. Yet it recognized that they were MP3s. I don't know what the fucking use of that is, but whatever. Maybe it just needs bug fixes. I don't know. So that's annoying, but again, no big deal. The next problem, the second one on this list here, that is actually truly bafflingly stupid, is the Hdcp protection issue. If you're not aware, Hdcp protection is basically a line of code in HDMI, which is the out video format on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, the Wii U, the thing you hook up to your TV. It's a format that is designed to prevent you from being able to capture footage from the device. This is very standard with a lot of Blu-ray based devices because they don't want you to pirate movies, which is totally understandable. However, with game consoles, a lot of people like to capture footage of the games and put them on videos such as this, even though there won't be any game footage in this specific video. But they like to do that. I know I do it on my other channel as well, Game Society Pimps, cheap plug right there. Go to that, it's a funny comedy channel. But yeah, we like to do that. Now, out of the box, the PlayStation 4 had HDCP protection across the board. It was incapable of allowing you to capture anything like a Blu-ray, which makes sense, and it was also incapable of letting you capture things like game footage, which makes no fucking sense. Now, let's look at its competition. The Xbox One has HDCP protection, but it's automatic. It only activates when you're using the Blu-ray functionality. It disables itself when you are on the dashboard or in a game or anything like that. Even when you're on like fucking YouTube. It does activate when you're on Netflix though, it knows. That's smart. The PS3, it had HDCP protection. They never removed it, ever. The only way to get game footage off, other than using an HDCP stripper, was to use the component output. Then, we go back to the Xbox 360, which people don't seem to realize this, did have HDCP protection. But it only enabled when you were on Netflix and when you use the HD DVD drive. Right? If you remember that thing. Now, that was 2007. And the Xbox 360 could tell the difference between HD DVD / Netflix and everything else. The PS4 cannot do that. So to their credit, they did actually eventually update the PS4 so that it removed HDCP protection. But it's a setting in the menu. Now that may sound trivial, because you're like, well, why don't you just go to the fucking menu and turn it off? What are you bitching about? Okay, no problem. I do that. I went ahead and I went and turned it off. No problem at all. Then I went ahead and I said, even though I thought it was odd that it wasn't automatic, it's fine, whatever, turn it off. You play the game, you're capturing your footage, happy day, great, I've got my footage, yay. Then I'm like, oh, all right, I'm going to relax, I'm going to stick in a Blu-ray and watch that. And then you get an error message, and it says, your HDCP protection is disabled. You have to go re-enable it if you want to watch this movie. And you're like, what? I have to go over to the menu and actually reactivate it so that you can play the movie? I will remind you, the Xbox 360 could tell the difference in 2007. It's 7 years later. Why can't the PS4 do that? I know it sounds like a stupid little thing, but think about how annoying that is. If you have to enable and re-enable, or enable and disable this thing constantly every time you want to switch between the two functions. Why? It's not like it can't be automatic. The other devices can do that. So that baffles me, and I hope they fix it because it's annoying. But that's not the thing that would ever make me say, oh, fuck it, I'm leaving and I'm going to Xbox. It's annoying as shit, yes, but I can play my Blu-rays on my PS3 and never have to deal with this crap. So whatever. Or even the Xbox One if I wanted to. The thing that pisses me off, and it looks like it's never going to be fixed, ever, according to Shuhei Yoshida himself, is external hard drive support. Now, if you don't know, the PS4 has an internal 500 gigabyte hard drive. Fine and good, great. But every single game has to allocate a certain amount of space to the hard drive. Let's just say this game took up 30 gigabytes, right? So if I put it in, it's going to instantly allocate 30 gigabytes of the 500 gigabyte hard drive just to the dedication of this game, which it's going to attempt to fully install, which could take days. It could, I don't know if it only installs when you're just playing it. I think that's the only time it ever installs is while you're actually playing it. Again, not an efficient method to verify if the disk is functional or not. I think that's ridiculous. That first of all, they gave us such small hard drives knowing full well how big these games were. But there's no real solution to it other than a possible external hard drive, which they have gone out of their way to disable. It does not support that. And so to all of us complaining, being like, look, man, I have this many PS4 games. My hard drive is like 80% full now. And I know, a lot of people are going to say, why don't you just delete the games then? You could do that, but then you lose all the patches as well. You lose all the updates as well. Which is, first of all, annoying because you'd have to re-download them. But servers do not last forever. They really don't. They get shut down, especially with consoles. I know PCs are less accustomed to this, but console servers get shut down. They don't stay up forever. The original Xbox servers were up for like 8 years. The Dreamcast servers were up for like 4. You know, they don't last. Now, granted, the PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One servers will probably be up for quite a few more years. They will get shut down. It will happen. And when that's the case, if I'm going to say, oh, I want to go pop in this game again, I'm going to reinstall it. Well, if there were any patches, they're long gone. I'm never going to get it. And then for the rest of my life, this thing is crippled. It is a gimped game I can never get the full experience out of because of that. So that means I don't want to delete the game once they're installed, which is why it would be so nice to have external support. The Xbox One offers us this. The Xbox One, no problem. Stick in a 5 terabyte fucking external hard drive. It'll format it and says, rip all the fucking games you want to it. No problem. Go nuts. PS4 does not do this. What they did instead is they gave us external support that really only supports like media. So you can have JPEGs, you can have MP3s that apparently don't even really work, and you might be able to have video. Ooh, that's awesome. No, it's not fucking awesome. It is not awesome. So, the only other solution at that point is you have to go, well, fortunately, the PS4 supports replacing the hard drive. You can take out the hard drive, put in a new one. Great. So what you might actually have to do, conceivably, is buy extra hard drives, put them in there, format them, put your account and all that bullshit on it, and then rip certain games to it, and then just kind of keep a fucking stack of hard drives. You swap in and out depending on which games you have. And this is assuming you intend to support the PS4 for the long run. I think that sucks, Sony. That sucks. Just update it so that we can use external hard drives. Please eliminate this problem for all of us for the rest of our lives. Please. Thank you. Alright, now that we've gotten past all that fucking bullshit, let's talk about some of the games. These are all my PS4 games. This is everything I've picked up over the course of the last year since the console has been out. So I'm going to give you a brief breakdown of each one of them. First up, as you probably already noticed, Infamous First Light. This is a cool release because this game actually only came out digitally in North America. I don't know about Japan. But in Europe, they got a physical release. And as I've said before, I do not support digital content. I do not do it. I just don't. And so as a result, I've said, oh, I can import this because this boy is region-free. And so is Xbox One, in all fairness. Wii U is the only fucker who's not region-free. But anyway, so I said, oh, great, import it. Obviously works, no problem, and it's great to have a physical copy. I really like the Infamous series, so that's cool. Along those lines, Infamous Second Son. Again, like the Infamous series, and I thought it'd be really cool to see what the PS4 was going to offer with that, and I've enjoyed it. Injustice, Gods Among Us. Basically, Ultimate Edition. Almost I wanted to say Definitive Edition, because that's basically what it is. It's that game beefed up. It's a really cool fighting game with obviously the DC universe of characters, but this version has, it says it right on the top, over 30 new skins, 6 new characters, 60 new Star Lab missions. It's basically just a bigger, better, more badass version of that game, and I highly recommend this one if you like fighting games. It's actually very cheap right now. At the time I make this video, you can get this on Amazon for 15 bucks, brand new, in the US. Killzone Shadowfall. This is a launch title. This is a first-person shooter, a very mediocre one at best. I would describe it kind of as like if Michael Bay made a first-person shooter game. It has a Michael Bay vibe. It has no story, it has no substance, it's just explosions are cool! That's pretty much what this is. And I don't regret it, really, because it's cool to have an exclusive, as always, but I wish I had waited longer to get this one. Knack kind of follows the same basic thing. Wish I had waited longer. It's a platformer, which is nice. Those are becoming way less common, but it's not a very good one. It's okay. It's something I would have picked up again later. I think this is pretty cheap now. I think this is like 20 bucks. I would probably wait to go even cheaper, though. Last of Us Remastered. Obviously a definitive edition PS3 game, but it's a definitive edition on crack. It's got all the DLC and stuff on it, and they had to like rewrite it entirely for the PS4. I just know that they defined it as being a total bitch to get it to run on the PS4, because obviously the PS3 version was very complicated to design because the PS3 hardware was so unique. But yeah, I don't really need to say much else about this. This is a game you should definitely pick up if you've never tried it. It says right on the cover, this will convince you in and of itself. Over 200 Game of the Year awards. It's a pretty good game. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes, aka the 10-minute demo of Metal Gear Solid 5. Very well made. It really is. But it's like, you can beat it very quickly. I mean, it does not take that long. And yeah, I only picked it up because I got it for 6 bucks. When it came out, it was only 25, which tells you exactly how much content it really has. I would say wait for super cheap. I mean, 6 bucks is fine, but there's going to be some people out there who say 6 bucks is still too much given the amount of content. So you make your own decision. Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. Tomb Raider was a really good game. And this might be one of the games that I think this is one of the first games that came out on the Xbox One and PS4 that wasn't a launch title. I think it was like the first. And it kind of showed us all maybe what we're in for this generation, which is a lot of definitive editions. Much like Injustice, which we might have considered a fluke. But this is like, we're getting more and more of these, where they're 7th gen games, where they basically just said, why don't we give them the PC version of that 7th gen game, which was much nicer looking. We'll put it out and say, hey, brand new release. Which is pretty much what this is. It obviously looks better, but the thing about it is that this game really showed everybody that the PS4 really was outperforming the Xbox One way more than we thought, depressingly. So it looks great, don't get me wrong, the game in itself is good, but you might have already played it. If you want to ever replay it or play it for the first time, this is probably the version to get, unless of course you're a PC gamer, then I don't even know why you're watching this, but there you go. I'm glad I have it, that's all I'm going to say. And Watch Dogs. This one is interesting to me too, because Watch Dogs was put out on everything, including the Wii U eventually. It took a while to get there. But the PS4, it's an interesting trend, man. Not only are we getting the better resolution and all that, but we're seeing this more and more often. This right here, it says PS4 Exclusive Edition, includes 60 minutes of exclusive gameplay. There are more and more games coming out that are multiplats, not only looking better, but actually having more content on the PS4. And so, can you really blame me? Like, honestly, if you sit back and take a totally neutral position, can you really blame me for saying, I'm kind of with Team Sony this time? Unless they never fix that fucking hard drive issue, because that's going to be a real thing, Sony. This stack of games, right here, this is like 350 gigabytes? I mean, how many more games do you expect me to be able to buy before I'm like, oh shit, I need another hard drive? We don't all want to just delete stuff. All you have to do, I'm not telling you gotta provide me with an external hard drive. Just enable the fucking feature. That's all I want you to do. So whatever. I hope this ridiculous rambling bullshit of this video has helped you guys kind of understand where my mindset is. And maybe going into the holiday season, you kind of see like, maybe I understand more about, you know, which one I'm going to get, etc. Or maybe you thought this was stupid and you didn't give a shit at all. But whatever. Nevertheless, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.